Welcome to Man About Danville with Logan H. Gurman, a podcast for Danville, Kentucky and beyond. Conversations with friends, and you get to listen. Brought to you by the Logan Company, a commercial and residential real estate brokerage for Danville and Central Kentucky. 80% Danville-centric, 20% eccentric.
Good morning, Danville, Kentucky. You are listening to Man About Danville. I am Logan H. Gurman, the man about Danville himself, and this is the fastest growing, most influential podcast for Danville, Boyle County, Central Kentucky, and probably the whole darn state. Thanks so much for joining me, whether you are in your car on your way to work, on your way back from work, on a road trip, on vacation, out for a walk, at the pumpkin patch, getting a pumpkin spice latte down at the Hub Coffee Shop, either location, picking apples at the old-time apple orchard, whatever your fall activity is. I appreciate you bringing me along for the ride. I sincerely appreciate your taking the time out of your day to listen to this podcast. Here's a heads up at the beginning of the show. If you listened last week, it was on Perryville Battlefield, my interview with Brian Bush. They are hosting a series of ghost walks. Those are sold out for Halloween night. Sorry, calling won't do you any good. Did they sell out because they were on this podcast? I don't know. I'm just saying. If you are a fan of this podcast, please consider sharing it to the social media platform of your choosing. I always appreciate that. My hope is that people that used to live in Danville get a chance to hear it and have a little taste of home. But if you would give it a share on social media, I would certainly appreciate that. I'm joined today by a friend from Center College. He's another man about Danville, a man about campus. I'm pleased to be joined today by my friend Bob Nesmith. Bob, thank you for being with me.
You're welcome. Good to be here.
Bob, you are a Center grad. You and I are about the same vintage. You're from Louisville.
Yeah, I am.
And where'd you go to high school? And when did you? Are you class of 89?
87.
87.
I'm
okay.
A couple of years older than you.
Lisa is class of 89.
91.
She's even.
I know. Scandalous, huh?
You and your wife both went to Center.
We did. Both grew up in Louisville. We went to Center 4 years apart. We weren't there at the same time, but met in Louisville through Center connections. And then when I came back to work here in 95, it was right after she graduated. Poor thing thought she'd escaped Danville and has been trying since. It's
kind of a little vortex down here. Once you get sucked in, it's hard to...
There's a lot of gravity.
Yeah. You've got two daughters.
I do.
And where are they?
Well, they're both at home right now, thank you, pandemic. My eldest daughter is a junior in college. She goes to Smith College in Massachusetts and loves it, but cannot be there this semester because they are online. And then my younger daughter, Emma, is a junior at Danville High School.
And your job title at Center is?
Dean of Admission and Financial Aid.
So you're both picking them and helping them figure out ways to get into Center once they've been selected.
Yeah. So that's a common structure in most colleges, especially most private colleges, that the admission and financial aid functions run up the same administrative tree. Financial aid is an enrollment tool, and enrollment is a revenue tool. That sounded really callous.
I could cut that out. I'm guessing that your job as the Dean of Enrollment and Financial Aid is drastically different in this year of 2020 with everything going on.
We've lost some of our regular tools. We haven't been able to have on-campus events for 6 months. No open houses, anything like that. We haven't been able to do tours that include more than one visitor at a time for 6 months. And for 3 months, we didn't have anybody coming.
Normally this time of year, it seems like I see roving bands of high school seniors and their parents nervously walking around campus and a student aide walking backwards pointing. And
right.
You just don't see that driving through campus these days.
Nope. You might see one family in masks with a tour guide.
Are you going to – do they have like college fairs that you're going to?
No.
Those have all been shut down too?
No. It's all virtual, and you can imagine that kids are, after being in Zoom school, are not terrifically excited about Zoom college fairs. They're never excited about college fairs anyway, but then for them to be Zoom. So we've lost that tool. So we're trying to figure out some new ways to do things. It makes marketing and communication and advertising much more important to reach students, and so we're putting a little more emphasis on that. And we're trying to find ways to be personal even when we can't be in person.
Has Center gone test score free, or are they still
test optional?
Test optional.
Yep.
I've noticed on Facebook, I've seen some friends complaining about trying to reschedule ACT classes, and it's just a customer service nightmare.
Oh, it's true. Yeah. Trying to get a standardized test right now is really, really challenging. And colleges and universities have recognized that. Lots and lots have gone test optional. And not just some just for this year. A lot have done what we're doing, which is we're going to do this for 3 years and then evaluate.
Are standardized test scores becoming less and less of an evaluation tool for students then?
Oh, I think that has been the trend for some time at certain levels of college admission. So if you're a small liberal arts college, all the way up the food chain, even all the way to the most selective ones, you are apt to find places that are test optional. If you're a large research university, you're much less likely to find a place that's test optional. But the dam on that is starting to break. University of Chicago a couple of years ago went test optional, and that was a big deal. It'll be interesting to see post-pandemic how many go back to tests, because my guess is that we'll only see the largest and most competitive public universities go back to it, and some of the most competitive private universities, and then most of the rest of us will stay test optional.
I can see if you're a big university that had 5,000 to 10,000 students in a freshman class and 20,000 applications, you need something, just some sort of line of demarcation to just weed through the just volume of applicants you have.
That's right. Yeah. It's when you're a small place, the notion of sifting through in a highly individualized process, the evaluation of students, you can do that. It's a harder thing for, as you say, a place that's great big, and so you find much more formula-driven kind of processes. But they're all going to figure out new ways to do it, and I think they're going to find that it's pretty effective. I think we're all going to find that, oh yeah, we can mostly do it without these.
Center's probably the most competitive school in the state.
Correct.
So if you're not looking at test scores, what are some things that you give a lot of weight to on an application?
How hard your courses have been in high school. I mean, that's the best predictor of success in hard college classes, taking hard high school.
You'd rather see somebody with a 3.5 and a half dozen AP classes than a 4.0 muddling through? Or is that an overgeneralization?
No, I'd agree with I mean, I'd rather see the 4.0 and 6 AP classes, right? But that's greedy. One of the things about AP and International Baccalaureate is they're clear standards of rigor. So you kind of know what you're getting from one high school to the next. It's not perfect. There's a lot of unevenness there. The other thing is it indicates a student's ambition, the degree to which they seek challenge, and that's always a good sign. You worry about the kid who has the ability to challenge themselves more fully and who hasn't taken advantage of that. How are they going to do when they come to a place where there's no easy option? So that tends to be the most important factor along with grades. Those are good predictors right there.
How much weight do you give to both extracurricular and external factors? At one point you said what you'd really like to have is a kid who was the very best at anything in the country or the world on campus.
I did?
It was at a New Year's Eve party, Bob.
Oh, okay. Well, it's true.
Because that's what we talk about at New Year's Eve parties. We're that old.
It's true. I just didn't remember saying that. Yeah, and Center's probably a little different than some places in that we still actively like generalists. We're still pretty happy to get kids who want to do a lot of different things. But generally in competitive admission, places are looking for students that are a little more angular, that do something extremely well. They're not looking for the kid who can play oboe and swim the 200 breaststroke and volunteer necessarily. They're looking for a kid who's good enough to play in their world-class symphony on the oboe, and be successful academically. The model's changed a little bit from when we were in high school, and what you always heard was everybody wants a well-rounded kid. There's some tension there with what's educationally sound, by the way, I think. Like, I want my kids to do a lot of different stuff in high school. I hate over-specialization at high school.
Personally, I do too. And I, of course, went to Rhodes because I like Center so much, but I just had to get out of town. And the liberal arts college model really suited me because if I could have majored in intro to everything, I would have. I'm much broader than I am deep. Nobody's ever accused me of being deep in anything. But something you said there reminded me, how is it different than when we were coming out of high school in the late 80s?
So the main thing that's changed, a couple things have really amped up. One, kids apply a lot more places. How many colleges did you apply to?
I think I was able to get the essays done, and I applied to 3, Rhodes, Davidson, and Center.
Yeah.
And I meant to apply to a couple others, but they had essay requirements, and I just wasn't going to write completely separate essays for 2 more schools.
Yeah, I started the process for 4 schools, completed the application process for 3, and that was that. And now the average is between 7 and 8.
Is that because of the common application?
No, not entirely.
Or is
that accelerates it, right? It makes it easier, but also it has to do with a bunch of people who want to get into the same 20 schools.
Are the essay requirements still as rigorous?
Depends. A lot of places have dropped those barriers because they want to remove hurdles to students applying.
So do they want to have 20,000 kids apply for their 1,000 spots?
Absolutely.
And so they can pad their numbers and make themselves look even more statistically?
That's the name of the game. The most cynical places, God, I probably shouldn't say this. The most cynical places will make it really easy to apply and then will waitlist kids who they think aren't interested enough.
So they'll waitlist the kid that they think may have applied to 8 different schools.
We're going to make it really easy for you to apply to 17 places, but then because you haven't clicked on our website very often, we're going to waitlist you.
They can track that stuff?
Oh, yeah.
So now, that's what I'm talking about, Bob. That's the behind-the-scenes kind of information I need to know about. So if my kid is really interested in going to some Ivy League place, I need to be hitting a refresh button.
Yeah. You know, it's not those places probably that are paying attention to it. It's the climbers.
Okay, I hear what you're saying.
And there's honestly not that many places that are using it in that incredibly cynical way. Okay, you can imagine if an admission officer can track your clicks on the website and they see sort of obsessive clicking on the website, they're like, yeah, I know what's going on here.
Okay. They could throw that statistical anomaly out too. Fascinating.
Wow, how did we get down that? So okay, there's something that's changed, right, since we were in school.
Websites, the internet.
Right. And colleges caring about how interested students are and looking to a factor like demonstrated interest, because it's become really easy to apply, and colleges are pumping hundreds of thousands of dollars into marketing to gin up more applications, and that creates a lot of noise in the system. So then you have to figure out on the college side, all right, how do we know a bunch of these kids have applied to 17 places. How do we figure out who's going to actually come if we admit them? And then so you get into sort of playing games with demonstrated interest. Center College is not probably not cynical enough in our admission process. We're pretty much pure as the driven snow. So we're not. I'm serious.
Knowing everyone that I know that's either on faculty or staff at Center, I believe that. That is an institution that is dedicated to learning, not a lot of the other ancillary activities that might be going on a college campus.
Yeah, but that's a common thing. But as a parent, the best advice I would give a parent is conduct a college search that gets off the beaten path and away from the obvious choices and includes schools other than the ones everybody else is applying to.
I'd love to be able to name some names here, but I don't want to. I don't want to do that. But I get what you're saying there. There's some great schools that don't have the brand name established that other schools might have in a similar market segment, for lack of a better term. Do you all still do? And this year, of course, is different. But do you all still place a lot of weight on the interview process and coming in and a personal interview?
Okay, so two things on the interview. One is that I find it makes admission officers better readers of a student's application if they've met and talked with them.
If you have a personal connection with a student, you'll be able to review their application with more understanding.
But lots of places don't offer those interviews. So it's not something you can do everywhere. And few places require it as part of the process because it can be such a barrier for students from less sophisticated high schools, students from rural areas, students from poor urban backgrounds, lots of students who colleges are interested in attracting. So you won't find it as a strong factor in many places' processes. But if you have the chance to do it, you should do it.
And I'm guessing that would if you bother to come for an interview, I guess that would demonstrate pretty high level of interest in the school too.
I think so.
Yeah. All right. So Center is, of course, in Danville, Kentucky. Kentucky, not a state known for its abundant wealth, and it doesn't have the most sparkling reputation in terms of education. Center stands out as a beacon of education, I think, in the state. I think you would agree with it. I think just about anybody would agree with it. So Center has done a great service of educating Kentuckians over the past century and a half. Mm-hmm. Still do. If you want to be a banker or an attorney in the state of Kentucky, there's probably no better place. The Center alumni mafia is a real and powerful force. Let's say you're fortunate enough to get into Center. The next question is, how do you pay for it?
Okay, so that depends. I'm going to say that a lot, by the way. That depends.
But Center has done a good job of making sure that kids from less advantaged socioeconomic backgrounds get in and get through.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And that's historically been true of Center over the decades. And that's still true, that we're a place where smart kids can come regardless of their means. In the college business, you measure that. One of the ways you measure that is by the percentage of your students on Pell Grant. Most of our peers would be in the high single digits to teens on Pell Grant percentage, and we've been the last couple of years 21, 22% Pell eligible. 25% of our first year students this year were first generation college students.
Golly, that's a staggering number.
Yeah, it's big. For a school that costs $55,000 a year, that's a big number. So I think we can be rightfully proud of that. Here's another piece of advice I would give to families. Really expensive schools tend to have a lot of money for financial aid.
Don't just assume that because it's an expensive college, don't automatically strike it off a list.
You can imagine what my daughter's college search was like, given her father's profession. And she was so badly overcoached on that, poor thing. But
she's doing okay, though. I mean,
it worked out great. Oh, she found the perfect school for her. She's very happy there. She's doing wonderfully. But I did a lot of price estimators for different colleges, to see, which is something you can do. It works really well. You can take about 10 minutes and get a notion for what a college is going to cost you.
Is that a website?
Generally on a college's website. So I did a whole bunch of these, and the places that were working out the best for us were the wealthiest places, the most well-endowed.
Okay, so you can put in your own economic data in.
Yeah, and sometimes academic data as well. So if you're worried about paying for college, even with a ninth grader, go do some net price calculators. And my experience is they're going to surprise you one of two directions. Either you're going to be like, oh, I can do that. That's better than I thought. or you're going to be like, holy God, how do they think I could pay $70,000 a year? It's an eye-opening thing, and it's better to have your eyes opened on the early side of things.
I'm getting that from my friends that have college-age kids. Well, that's why I'm worrying about it now with a ninth grader and a fifth grader. I'm much more worried about it than they are. But
my experience is that the families that it's often not families with less means who have the most stress and anxiety over cost. It's the families who have means and don't particularly want to put it towards college.
I can. It's those kind of caught in the middle. It's
so for a family like that, doing something early to figure out, okay, here's what colleges are going to expect me to be able to pay, and then you can start to use that to shape your college search, right? If you do that and the estimators say, you can afford $75,000 a year for college, and you say, no, I cannot, then you start looking for places either with lower price tags or places with merit scholarship programs where your kid might be competitive.
And Center, of course, has those too.
We do, yeah. I mean, that's one of the big ways we meet financial need.
Center, of course, has a point of differentiation with their study abroad program. I know that's important to just about every student that goes to school there. And any idea how that, and this isn't your bailiwick, do you have any idea how that's going to look going forward in 2021 or?
Oh, well, that's a big question right now. You know, we're hoping that we're in a world with a vaccine this spring that's broadly available. We're hoping that we can start to resume study away in the fall, maybe even in the summer in some selected places.
That's if those other colleges or those other countries want to have us.
Right. Correct. Yeah. If we can get in. Yep.
All right. What are some any other secrets, anything else behind the curtain of college admissions?
Behind the curtain? Gosh, Kentucky kids, Danville kids who want to look at highly selective places have an advantage in being from small town Kentucky if they're willing to stretch their geography. If you're willing to look at schools in New England, there's real competitive places up there in terms of getting in. Being a small town Kentucky kid helps because that is a kind of diversity that those places are seeking these days.
So, and those schools up there don't realize exactly how spectacular Danville is and the number of really smart, sharp kids that get cranked out of this small town.
They might, if they know their business, but they can still claim it as, oh, look at this kid probably grew up in a holler.
Well, quite literally in some right here in Boyle County. You come into school from the Fork and come into the school from the farm, and it's not a stretch. It's not a mischaracterization by any stretch of the imagination. It's just that Danville really has a good history of producing really smart, sharp kids on a very regular basis. So
if you're willing to get out of the region a bit, being from Kentucky is the kind of hook that'll help you in a highly competitive process.
Just like coming from a state other than Kentucky probably makes your application stand out a little bit on the desk of a center admissions officer.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
People take standardized tests too often. If there's one good thing that comes from the pandemic, maybe that'll be it. If you take the ACT 8 times, you've taken it 5 or 6 times too many.
Okay.
Probably. I used to be against testing too early in the high school career, and then my daughter taught me a lesson on that because, if you're in accelerated math, the math that's tested on the ACT and SAT, you may have had in 8th grade.
My understanding, the math on those caps out around Algebra 2.
Yeah.
So if you're 3 years removed from Algebra 2, it may not be as fresh.
Yeah. I mean, there's some trig kind of stuff on there. But if you're taking pre-calc as a 10th grader, which a lot of kids do, then it's not unreasonable to take a crack at the ACT spring of sophomore year.
Okay.
But you don't need to do it every month from the spring of sophomore year until fall of senior year.
So I don't need to be worried about my freshman taking the ACT this spring.
No. Please don't. No. That's horrible.
The sad part about this for me was that was the best part of my application. I'm a good test taker.
Yeah.
Not so good in the interview, but but I can nail a Scantron test.
As a parent, I would I'd read some about the process and look for trusted, informed sources of information rather than. I mean, the experience of your friends and neighbors is going to be valuable, of course, but sometimes can also be a little misleading.
Sometimes the competitive nature of our friends and neighbors can play against us.
Yeah, no.
Yeah. No, I'm seeing that. Center has a new president. I have yet to meet Milton Moreland, although he's
a Rhodes guy.
He's a Rhodes guy and a Memphis guy, and I'm looking forward to talking about barbecue with him at some point in the near future. Is there anything new, innovative, changing about Center in the near future that you think would be applicable?
Yeah, well, I mean...
Or give a pitch.
Well, let me give a pitch for the liberal arts because I think people badly misunderstand how relevant a liberal arts education is now.
As opposed to a degree in chemical engineering or... Right.
It's something that appears to lead more directly to a profession. The power of being able to think creatively and constructively across a number of different disciplines, the power to continue to learn has just never been more important. I think you'll see Center at the same time. I mean, we have a powerfully traditional conception of the liberal arts and sciences that has served us well, and I think you'll see us growing into some ways that can become connected to and applied to real career-ready skills. For instance, I think you'll see in the coming years investment in a business program.
Well, they got the new business incubator.
CenterWorks is part of that initiative. I think that's really interesting and creative, and I hope becomes a valuable contribution to the community, not just something that helps Center kids. So I think you'll see us push more into that realm, which really has been a good strength for us through the economics program. But we're going to fill in some curricular pieces there that I think will make it more possible for students who want to jump directly into business careers. I think you'll see us develop even more strength in things like computer science and data science, which aren't traditionally imagined as liberal arts and sciences fields, but have become that. And if you're a data scientist who also knows how to communicate fluently,
who can write and speak, and you're exactly right.
Oh my Lord, you're a valuable, very employable person who is not only going to get a job, is going to move up quickly.
One of the most valuable things about my liberal arts education, I majored in English, but I had enough room in my schedule over a traditional 4-year path to take accounting classes and marketing classes and photography classes. You know, those are skills that have stayed with me throughout my career, even though I love majoring in English and writing and communication is very important. But just to be able to explore some different areas, I thought was a really valuable part of my college experience.
You don't get the chance to do that again much in life. It's important to developing interesting people.
Well-rounded citizens.
Correct.
At one point, John Roush was gracious enough to let me audit one of his class on leadership, and he gave a piece of advice to the class that I thought was – I wish somebody had given me that piece of advice when I was still in college, and that was to take a drama class. And being on stage, speaking in front of a group, in character or not, was an incredibly valuable skill no matter what you do. And, you know, and given his position as president of the school, he was often on stage speaking, and not necessarily John Roush, but the president of the Center College in that role. I thought that was one of my favorite pieces of advice. And you may not, I'm sure you have the challenge, you have the ability to do that no matter where you go to school. But I thought it was really cool that here the president of the college was encouraging that for these kids of all different backgrounds.
And I think you're right that you probably have more liberty to do so at a liberal arts college where by design your major is apt to take a less big bite out of your total curriculum. You got more time to explore and do other stuff.
Any parting thoughts?
It'll be okay. It really will be okay. The secret to a successful college admission process is realizing and acknowledging that there are a whole lot of really good schools, and there are a whole lot of really good schools that admit the majority of their applicants. The number that admit fewer than half their applicants is just ultimately pretty small. So it's going to be okay. You just got to be ready to explore some, get off the beaten path. Don't be obsessed with the same 10 places as everybody else, and be realistic about costs.
Any deadlines coming up anytime soon here in the fall of 2020?
Center College, the early action deadline is December 1st. If you're real fired up about Center and want to apply early decision, that's November 15th.
Okay, so that's a couple of weeks. So
yeah, a month.
A month.
Early decision is a different topic, but some kids are going to feel some pressure to do that at highly competitive places. And I would say step carefully, make sure you're actually committed to the place. And if you are, it can work out wonderfully. But you gotta know that you're ready to go.
Okay.
If you get in.
Bob Nesmith, Director of Admissions and Financial Aid at Center College. Thanks for your time today.
You're welcome, Logan. It was a pleasure.
Good to see you today, sir. Thank you. But wait, there's more. You know what it's time for. What's up, Danville? Danville. You know the drill. What's up, Danville is where I tell you what's going on with sports, the arts community, and the not-for-profit community here in Danville and the surrounding region. UK travels to Missouri for an away game. Boyle County is on the road, supposedly, if everything goes smoothly, to play Bourbon County. Saturday morning, my favorite local high school sports team takes it on the road. Boyle County cross-country team and my son Max are going to regionals up near Cave Run Lake, I believe. Maybe Wayne County, I'm not sure. But anyway, good luck to all the Runnin' Rebels, boys and girls teams both. Looks like Danville High School football team is supposed to be playing Lexington Christian Academy at home Friday night. Boyle County High School swim and dive team is hosting the Monster Dash 5K out at Millennium Park on the morning of Halloween. That's a Saturday, the 31st. Last I saw, there were only a couple of in-person registrations available. They are limiting the number of runners in person to keep all the runners safe. But you can participate virtually if you want to. I'll throw the links in the show notes where you can sign up to participate, get the T-shirt. If you have a younger athlete interested in swimming, the Commonwealth Swim Club here in town will be swimming, training, and competing, although it's going to be a vastly different year than any year past because of all the COVID-related restrictions and not as many pools, but they are still getting things done. I'll put a link to the Commonwealth Swim Club in the show notes. I don't know if you've noticed this or not, but we are in the fourth quarter of 2020. We're in the last lap, the final leg, the last stages, fortunately. Things for me have gotten busier with work, and my kids are back in school and participating in things, and just life in general is busier than it was when I started this podcast. I am seriously considering taking the podcast to a bi-weekly format, at least for the rest of the year. That's probably once every 2 weeks. I am still planning some specific episodes. There are still people I want to talk to, so hang in there with me. I appreciate you hanging in there for 28 episodes so far. I hope to bring you fresh, exciting, valuable content throughout the rest of the year. It'll just be on an every 2 week basis instead of every Friday, although I will leave myself the opportunity to come in basically whenever I want and drop an episode, and you can listen to it or not. So thanks for hanging with me. Thanks for listening to this podcast. I appreciate it. My thanks to Bob Nesmith for joining me. He's the Director of Admissions and Financial Aid at Center College. I'll try to get links up to everything in the show notes. Do you want to get in touch with me to either talk about the show or real estate? You know I am a real estate broker here in town. That's one of the things that's keeping me busy here in the fourth quarter. Hit me up, manaboutdanville@gmail.com. You can find me on the website, manaboutdanville.com. Email me, manaboutdanville@gmail. Find me on Instagram, manaboutdanville. Twitter handle is @mandanville. Facebook page, manaboutdanville. You can find me just about anywhere you access your high-quality podcasts, like on the Apple Podcast app, Spotify, iHeartRadio, Google Podcast, and just about anywhere else. You can even use your Amazon Echo to listen. I'm now on the YouTube, so you can see a still picture of my face while you listen to me. How much fun is that? If you have a moment, hit the subscribe button wherever you listen. Also, if you have time, I really appreciate it if you can give me a rating or a review. All right, people, that's all I've got. Be well, have a good weekend, and thanks for listening.
That's it. We're out. Thanks so much for listening. We really appreciate it. Subscribe to Man About Danville wherever you access your favorite podcasts, and be sure to tell your friends about us. You've been listening to Man About Danville with Logan H. Gurman, brought to you by the Logan Company, a commercial and residential real estate brokerage for Danville and Central Kentucky. Know someone who would be a good guest? Want to be a guest yourself? Have an idea for the show? Get in touch with us. Find all our contact information on the web at manaboutdanville.com. Thanks for joining us.